Also, as we say here in Harambe, we say 20 days, which means let's go. Jumbo, everybody. My name is Matt from Guthrie, Oklahoma. I'm going to be your safari guide out here today on the Harambe Wildlife Reserve. Before we head out, I do have some safety reminders to go over with you all. While we're out there, I'm going to ask that you keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside of the vehicle at all times, and that you do remain fully seated throughout our entire safari. It's going to be for your safety, for the safety of everybody around you, and for the safety of any of the animals that we might get to see out there. Now, speaking of those animals, before we do get ready to head out, now is going to be the best time to take a look up at that animal spotting guide. That'll give you an idea of some of the different animals that we might get to see while we're out there. Now, I can't guarantee that we're going to find every single one of those animals, but we do tend to have some pretty good luck, so we should at least be able to find a few of them. Now, one thing I will be able to guarantee is that we will not be able to stop for every single animal that we might see out there. So definitely make sure that you've got any of those cameras ready if you do plan on taking any of those photos today. And we do highly encourage that you take any of the photos that you may want, but we do also recommend having those cameras ready in a sports action or a live mode. Get some of the best photos.
That's a great idea.
Now you can also just take one long video as well. We'll be heading out here in just a second as that truck in front of us is going to make their way out. We're going to start following them now, as our first stop today is going to be out in the Little Maturi Forest. Now, for many of the animals that are going to call the forest home, they do like to spend their time around the trees and around the bushes. That tends to be where most of those animals are going to blend in best. Now, all the way up on that hillside here to our left, we're going to start by seeing the saddle-billed stork. It's going to be that larger black and white bird. They're known to stand at about 5 feet tall. They also do have a pretty large wingspan of just about 8 to 9 feet, or about as wide as the canopy that you've got above you. Now, if you do take a look out to our right-hand side, kind of back behind some of the bushes and some of that taller bamboo, you are going to see a darker brown animal kind of hiding away back there. And that is an okapi. The okapis are going to have black and white stripes all over their legs. They kind of make it look like they are rocking some zebra party pants. They're actually not related to the zebras in the slightest. They happen to be the only known relatives to the giraffe. And we can really tell that because the two are going to have pretty similar skull structures to one another.
That's a deer, isn't it? That's a deer.
Now, up at the top of the hill, you might see the greater kudu, that larger tan-colored antelope, but we're also looking at some of the black rhinos out there to our left. The black rhinos are going to be the smaller of the rhinos that you'll find out here in Africa. They weigh about 3,500 pounds. Now, they also tend to be pretty solitary. Black rhinos are often going to be spending their time kind of out on their own and separated away from one another. So it's not really uncommon when you find those black rhinos pretty far away from one another. Now, we're looking at the greater kudu once again here to our right. Now, they are a large tan-colored antelope with the ability to leap about 6 feet in the air. The ones that we're looking at specifically, they are going to be female, and we can tell that based on the fact that they don't have any horns, whereas the males, they will have a set of horns at about 6 feet wide or so. Now, to our left, we do have a couple of bongos. Now, bongos, they are going to be a copper-colored antelope. They are known as the ghosts of the forest because they spend a lot of their time kind of tucked away in bushes where they are known to stay pretty hidden away. As we do start making our way up the hill, we're going to be leaving the Aturi Forest, but our next stop is going to be down by the Safi River, home to some of the more aquatic and semi-aquatic animals here in Africa. As we make our way down, you'll want to keep your eyes peeled on any waters that you see, as well as any of the banks that we may find, as sometimes the animals are going to like to hang out there as well. Now we're looking at some of the pink-back pelicans here to the right, those larger white birds. Pink-back pelicans will get their name from the pink color that their backs will turn during mating season. They are colonial nesters as well, and a colony is going to have anywhere from 20 up to about 500 individual pelicans in it. Poking our head up from the water here is going to be that Nile hippo. We'll see some more out to our left in a second as well. Now, hippos, they do spend most of their time in and underneath the water, but they do not really swim. What those hippos are going to do is they will sink all the way down towards the bottom, and they're going to kind of run or glide along the bottom of that water's edge. So oftentimes for us, they really do just look like a bunch of moving shadows. They are going to sink their way all the way to the bottom, and they're going to run or glide along the bottom of that water's edge, and they're going to hold their breath down there for an extended period of time. When they need to come up for air, their bodies will just naturally float back up to the top. They will gather up any of the air that they may need before they just sink all the way back down. You'll even see another one of those hippos out to our left-hand side here. And about there, actually, there's quite a few of them up there on that end.
Oh, they're sleeping.
We're also going to be taking a look at the Nile crocodile here to our left.
Oh, there's a crocky.
Now, Nile crocodiles, they are incredibly long. They're going to be just about as long as a giraffe is tall, averaging at about 16 feet in length, which does make them the longest of the reptiles here in Africa. Now, they don't really do a whole lot of moving around. They tend to stick around in one spot as they're going to wait for their source of food to come to them. They are also known to eat about half of their body weight in a single sitting. And so they don't need to eat super frequently. Oftentimes those crocodiles are known to eat one spot every 1 to 2 weeks. But in moments of food scarcity, they could also go a couple of months without eating and still be just as fine. Our time at the Safi River, it has come to an end. But our next stop, it's going to be down on the savannah, home to some of the most famous animals in the world, but also home to a pretty drastic change in the landscape, as it will be an entirely different ecosystem than anything that we have seen so far. And that is going to begin with the baobab tree coming up here to our right-hand side. The baobab tree is also going to be known as the tree of life, getting that nickname from all of the water that it's going to store within that great big trunk. They do work as a watering source for many of the different animals that you can find here on the savannah. And so you can also think about it like the savannah's juice box, if you will. Those trees, they are going to be remaining leafless, just like what we saw for most of their year, as a way to preserve the water that does get stored within their trunks just a little bit better. As we are making our way onto the savannah, we are starting to see just how large of a space the savannah really is. And it's also going to be much more flat and much more open than anything that we have seen. So we're going to see lots of different animals out there in the distance. Now, if we don't stop for the animals that you're seeing out in the distance, more than likely, we'll see them pretty well in just a bit. Now, the first of the animals that we're going to see here on the savannah are going to be the Ankole cattle. The Ankole cattle are known for their great big horns, as both males and females do have them. And their horns will span at about 6 feet wide from tip to tip. Now, because their horns are so large, people do often believe that those horns are going to be pretty heavy. However, they're actually not. They're pretty light, weighing about 10 pounds. It's going to be due to the honeycomb-like structure that their horns have to the interior of them. So really, their horns are mostly hollow and mostly just made up of air.
They're made of hollow air.
Now, coming up to our left, we're going to be looking at a den. Dens just like this one are often great spaces to find some of the hunters here on the savannah. Off to the right-hand side of that den, you're going to see some of the tan, black, and white spots laying out there. We'll get another look at them as we do get to the other side of the great big boulder, as it looks like there is a giraffe blocking the road here just up ahead. But it looks like we're going to be moving. Now, the animals that you're looking out to the side of the den, those are the African painted dogs. While they are super cute, I definitely do not recommend trying to take any of these puppies home with you, as they are some of the most successful hunters here on the savannah. They do tend to be far more successful than any big cat species here in Africa. That will be due to the pack mentality that they're known to hunt with, so they're known to hunt all together from all different angles. We got some of the sable antelope hanging out there to our left with this Maasai giraffe that we're looking at. Now, these sable antelope, they are going to be known for the set of horns that they have that are going to curve towards their backs. They can use those horns as a really great way to defend themselves against predators that may try to come up from behind. Now, when it does come to any sort of fight or flight situation for the sable antelope, they are pretty much going to almost always be choosing to fight. That's really not to say that they are an aggressive antelope by any means, just that they are pretty protective of themselves, but they'll also be pretty protective of the rest of their herds as well. Now, the giraffe that we're looking at, they tend to find themselves all over the savannah. Maasai giraffe are going to be what we will specifically find here on the reserve. They have much more jagged spots all over their bodies than their reticulated giraffe counterparts. Reticulated giraffe are often just going to be covered in a bunch of smoother spots that kind of look like a bunch of squares just pasted all over their bodies. Giraffe, just in general, though, they are the tallest animals in the world, ranging from just about 18 to 20 feet tall when full grown. and they will spend most of their days eating. Giraffes are often going to be known to eat for just about 20 or so hours of their day. Also looking at the Hartman's Mountain Zebras here to our right. Hartman's Mountain Zebras, they are going to have much bolder stripes on their behinds than they do on the rest of their bodies. And those stripes, they will not be extending all the way down past their bellies. They're going to have a pretty large white spot down there throughout their whole lives. And each and every single one of the zebras that you're seeing out here, they will have a stripe pattern to them that is unique to themselves. Sort of working a little bit like a fingerprint or even a barcode for them. Helps those zebras to identify one another out in the wild.
I love you, princess.
We're going to keep on moving forward and see what other types of animals we may find. So we're heading out towards a bunch of trees, which usually is a great space to find some of those giraffe. Now the giraffe, their diets will mainly consist of leaves, so typically they're going to be around a whole bunch of trees and bushes. As they're eating for so often throughout the day, they do need to have a pretty stable food source. Now with them eating for that 20 hours, the leftover time that they may have, only about 30 minutes of that is going to be spent sleeping. The giraffe, they are not going to be sleeping for 30 minutes all at the same time either. It usually does get broken up throughout their day into just a couple minute intervals at a time, taking quick power naps really before they continue on with the rest of their day of eating.
Do a lot of eating.
Yeah, they've been eating all the
Now we're going to be getting ready to head out into what appears to be elephant territory. Elephants here on the savannah, they love to act like bulldozers. They're going to knock over trees and make lots and lots of room for life and new vegetation to grow. All they knocked over tree limbs should be a pretty good indicator for us that we might spot the elephants here shortly. But an even better indicator that we'll find some elephants will actually be this African elephant coming up here to our right. Now this elephant here has its backside turned to us, so we're not going to really sit and watch the backside of this elephant. Now this is an African elephant, and they will have great big ears that do roughly resemble the shape of the continent of Africa. They're often known to flap those ears back and forth. That's a really great way to cool their bodies off, sort of like a fan or an air conditioner, just attached to them at all times.
Oh, he's chewing on something.
Now more than likely this elephant that we're seeing out here is a male elephant because he's out here all by himself. Males are pretty solitary, so they do spend most of their days out on their own. It's going to start at around their teenage years. Their herds are actually going to be the ones that ask them to split off. They're going to start that time out by themselves, and they may occasionally rejoin those herds for short periods of time, but they will also be known to meet up with other male elephants. And together they're going to form what are known as bachelor herds. But because they are such solitary animals, those bachelor herds, they don't really tend to last too long either. And so very rarely are you going to find an entire group of those male elephants out in just one spot. As the elephant is also going to be the largest land mammal, they are known to eat about 3 to 4% of their body weight in a single day. It's quite a bit of food, and there is pretty much no space out on the savannah that the elephants can find all of that food in just one spot. So they do spend a lot of their days roaming around, searching for as much of the food as they can find. Now, lucky for us, we do still have quite a bit of ground to cover while we're out here. We're going to keep our eyes peeled and see if we might spot any more elephants, or at least any more signs of elephant activity. To that right-hand side, we're going to see some of the tusk marks there on the side of that clay wall. Those will come from elephants digging their tusks into the side there. Now in doing so, they are loosening up the clay. They're going to then bring the clay up towards their mouth so that way they can eat the clay, which might sound a little bit silly, but ultimately that red clay, it is full of tons of nutrients and minerals, so they're going to be keeping those elephants nice and healthy. Very similar to how you or I might take our vitamins to stay nice and healthy. That red clay, it does very similar things for those elephants. Now we might get a very brief look at a baby elephant coming up. Now I don't think we're going to get the best view of her, so we're not going to stop for her. We'll probably get another look at other elephants coming up there in just a second. But if we look through the trees here, kind of all the way to our left corner, you might get a very brief look at her. It looks like she's got her backside turned to us. Now she is just about a year old. She was born just at the end of last year. She's going to be the youngest of her herd and the youngest of all of the elephants that you're going to find here.
Another one.
Now, female elephants, they do remain pregnant with their babies for just about 22 months. They do remain pregnant for almost a full 2 years. It then does take them about 14 to 15 years for an elephant to be considered full-grown, giving elephants one of the longest periods of time for them to be considered a full-grown adult. Looks like we're heading down towards the elephant's watering hole. Looks like there's going to be one making their way out towards the waters here. But also here in front of us, we're going to be getting a pretty good look at this flamboyance of the greater flamingo. Yeah, they do get their group name, the flamboyance, due to the vibrancy of that color paint. The greater flamingo, they are the larger of the flamingos, as they are the taller of them. They will also be the lightest shade of pink as well. Now the flamingo's pink color, it comes primarily from their diet. Their diet consists mainly of brine shrimp, and brine shrimp is full of beta-carotene, which is a protein that is going to help that pink color to come out. Those flamingos, they do not hatch from their eggs with their pink. They're actually going to hatch as a fluffy little gray bird. They do tend to lose that fluff pretty early on, however they will be staying gray for just about 2 years or so as they're getting a little bit bigger and consuming far more shrimp. We're heading out towards a mud wallow now. Our next stop is usually a great space to find lots of different animals here on the savanna gathering. Now obviously, if you're looking out there, you're not really seeing a whole lot of anything gathering at the moment. However, mud wallows are usually pretty good indicators of some rhino activity as well. So that means that we might get the opportunity to see some rhinos here in the area. Now the white rhinos, they do love to come out to a mud wallow. They're going to plop themselves down into that mud and cover their whole bodies in it, as it's going to keep them cool, but it does also work as a natural sunblock and a natural bug repellent for them. So it is going to keep their skin protected in just a couple of different ways. As that mud does dry on their bodies throughout the day, they can then use these trees kind of like a scratching post. They're going to get off all of that old mud so that way they can then go right back to the mud wallow, and they'll do it all over again. Now if we look out to our left, up on that hillside, we might see some cheetahs moving around. There's going to be one coming up kind of back behind those taller bushes. Actually, it looks like there's two of them up and moving around, and I see a third.
Oh no.
Now the cheetahs are the fastest land mammals. They are going to go from about 0 to 16 miles per hour in just about 3 seconds. Now they cannot maintain those fast speeds for very long, just about a few hundred yards. They have non-retractable claws that they can kind of use like a set of spikes or cleats, allowing them to grip into the ground and gain some of their traction. But they are not going to be a part of the big cat family. Cheetahs, they do not have the ability to roar like a typical big cat, such as a tiger or even a lion. Instead, the sounds that they're going to make are going to be closer to a bird or even a house cat, really making more of a chirping, sort of a purring or even a meowing sort of sound. Speaking of those big cats though, Kopi rocks like what we're coming up to are usually a great space to spot some big cats, just like lions that we're going to be seeing up in just a second. Now lions are known to kind of sleep or rest for about 20 or so hours of their day, and it looks like these three have positioned themselves really, really well to where we'll get a pretty good look at them. We're going to kind of circle our way around the Kopi here. We'll get a pretty good look at all three of them in just a moment. Now this is going to be a relatively young pride consisting of the male and those two females. And we can tell that they are a younger pride because the male still has his mane growing in. Now when it comes to the hunting for the pride of those lions, the females are going to be the ones that go out and do most of that hunting, while the males, they do stay back and they're going to protect the Kopi as well as any of the cubs that may also call the Kopi home. As they need to communicate to one another, their roars can be heard from about 5 miles away. That is really beneficial, especially while they're hunting, as it allows those lions to travel some pretty far distances while still maintaining that communication with one another. If you look out to our left, you might spot some of the warthogs all the way over in that left-hand corner. They do look a little bit like fuzzy rocks back there, so they can camouflage in. They're one of the largest burrowing animals here in Africa, but they're also incredible landscapers. They have 2 sets of tusks and a really long snout that they can kind of use like a shovel. Helps them dig out new burrows, or really allows them to just reshape any pre-existing ones, as they'll also be pretty great recyclers as well.
There's some rhinos.
To our right, we're looking at the white rhinos. Now, white rhinos will be the larger of the rhinos that we're going to find out here in Africa. They weigh about 4,000 up to about 6,000 pounds. They also do tend to be far more social than other rhinos. They're typically going to be found out in pairs or in groups, just like what we saw. And a group of those rhinos is called a crash. Now, they get their grouping in the crash due to the fact that rhinos are actually known to have pretty terrible eyesight. They can really only see about a few feet in front of them. However, they do make up for their eyesight with other senses, as they are known to have a pretty good sense of smell, but also pretty sensitive ears. They've got a good sense of hearing also. Now we're going to start heading away from the savannah. Our next stop is down here at our Warden's post here in the Magadi Glen. Our wardens are the ones that take care of the different animals all across the preserve. So as you can imagine, they do have a lot of animals to take care of. And one of the most important jobs out here, it usually doesn't leave them with too much time, is they're going to have a lot of ground to cover. So we usually don't find our wardens here at their posts. However, we almost always are going to have pretty good luck when it comes to finding their Nigerian dwarf goats. Now these goats that we're looking at, they're going to be all up on that roof and kind of off to the hillside to our left. Now they are pretty small. They're going to be staying small just like this throughout their entire lives. They are very active and very, very playful animals as well. Their favorite snack is called underbrush, which conveniently enough for them, it is what most traditional livestock are going to leave behind, as most of their livestock, they don't have the stomachs to digest that brush. But those Nigerian dwarf goats, they've actually got 4 chambers to their stomachs, allowing them to digest that brush really just a little bit better. Now today, if you are interested in learning more about Disney's efforts in conservation, as some of the animals here on the reserve might be cared for, or really if you just want another look at those Nigerian dwarf goats, I do highly recommend checking out Rafiki's Planet Watch. It's about a 5-minute train ride over there on the Wildlife Express that you'll find here in Africa. And as you do head over there, you'll get a behind-the-scenes look at some of the different animal barns, such as the elephants or even the rhinos. You can then also you'll go through a bit of a trail where you'll learn more about various efforts in conservation that you can take part in. Some that might help animals all the way out here in Africa, or some that might just help animals right there in their own backyard, as you really don't have to travel very far whatsoever in order to make a significant impact to a planet that each and every single one of us are going to be calling home. Our biggest Planet Watch is also home to the affection section, which is the closest thing to a petting zoo here in the park. Home to those Nigerian dwarf goats, as well as various other small animals, such as cows, pigs, or sheep as well. Now we are going to be coming up to our final stop here in just a moment. Now is going to be the best time to take a look down at those floorboards so you can gather up any belongings that might have shaken loose while we were out there. You don't want to leave anything up here on my truck, because it is quite a bit of a trek all the way back to Africa. As the truck here in front of us pulls away, we'll be taking their spot here in just a second. Now as we do come up to that stop here in Harambe, we do not like to say goodbye, because goodbye is far too sad and far too final. So instead, we like to say Kwaherini, which means to go well. First of all, at that stop, I do want to say Kwaherini to you all. Thank you so much for coming along with me. Now, once again, my name is Matt from Guthrie, Oklahoma, and I do hope that you enjoyed your time out there on the reserve today. If you're sitting there on that right-hand side, watch your hands, arms, feet, and legs as those doors are sliding open. Watch your step as you exit the vehicle. Have a great rest of your day here in Disney's Animal Kingdom.